Have you ever been hurt by someone you trusted? A friend, a partner, a family member. They said something that cut deep, or did something that broke you from the inside out. And for days, maybe months, you replay it in your mind, right? What did I do wrong? Why would they do that to me? Pain becomes a loop you can't escape. But today, I want to show you something different. 3 powerful ways to respond when people hurt you, so you can stop bleeding emotionally and start healing with strength. 1. Stay silent, not weak. Let me tell you something. Not every battle deserves your energy. When someone throws words like knives, they want a reaction. They want to pull you into their chaos. But silence is power. Silence says, I know my worth, and I won't lower my voice to match your noise. Think about this. When a dog barks at the moon doesn't bark back. It just shines. Your silence confuses people who expect you to explode. It disarms them. It teaches them that your peace is more valuable than their drama. So next time someone tries to hurt you with words, breathe, don't react. Let your silence speak volumes. 2. Forgive, but never forget the lesson. Now listen carefully. Forgiveness is not weakness. It's freedom. When you hold on to anger, you're drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. You carry their actions in your heart, replaying the moment again and again, and all it does is chain you to their pain. Forgiveness says, I refuse to let this lie rent-free in my soul. You don't forgive them because they deserve peace. You forgive them because you do. But never forget the lesson. Pain is a teacher that shows you where to build stronger walls, wiser choices, and clearer boundaries. Every person who hurts you is either a blessing or a lesson, sometimes both. 3. Redirect the energy. When someone hurts you, they want power over you. But here's the secret. You can reclaim that power by transforming the pain into purpose. Channel that energy into your goals. Use the betrayal as fuel. Turn your heartbreak into hunger for growth. Think of every painful experience as fire. You can either let it burn you, or you can use it to forge yourself into steel. I once met a man who lost everything because his business partner betrayed him. He was broken, angry, ready to give up. But instead of seeking revenge, he rebuilt, this time smarter, stronger, unshakable. And years later, that betrayal became his greatest teacher. That's what happens when you redirect your energy. You rise. Here are some key points related to this. 1. Silence is strength. Not reacting gives you control over your energy. 2. Forgiveness sets you free. It's about peace, not permission. 3. Learn the lesson. Pain teaches what peace cannot. 4. Redirect your energy. Use hurt as motivation, not misery. 5. Boundaries protect your heart. Not everyone deserves access to your peace. 6. Transformation is victory. Every wound can become wisdom if you let it. There's a moment in every person's life when silence becomes the loudest sound they'll ever make. You're standing there. Someone has just said something cruel. A comment meant to pierce your confidence or twist a knife in your heart. And your first instinct is to fight back. Your pulse races. Your tongue burns with words you want to throw right back at them. But you stop. You take a breath. You choose silence. And in that pause, something powerful happens. You rise above the chaos. Silence is not the absence of power. It's the presence of control. Imagine this. A man is falsely accused at work, blamed for something he didn't do. Everyone's talking, gossiping, waiting for him to defend himself, to shout, to argue. But he doesn't. He simply keeps showing up, doing his job, and letting his work speak louder than their words. Weeks later, the truth surfaces. The same people who doubted him now respect him. Because he didn't fight to prove himself. He let his calm do the talking. That's the quiet authority of silence. There's a quote that says, "Never wrestle with pigs. You both get dirty, but the pig likes it." When people try to hurt you, they often want a reaction. Your anger, your fear, your emotional surrender. They feed on it. But when you give them nothing, when you respond with calm indifference, you take away their power. They expect fire and get ice instead. That's when they realize they can't control you. Think about nature for a second. When lightning strikes, The ocean doesn't scream back. It just absorbs the storm, then returns to stillness. That's how you need to be when people throw storms at you. Not cold, but composed. Not passive, but peaceful. Because silence is not the language of weakness. It's the language of mastery. There's a story of a woman who was humiliated publicly by someone she loved. Instead of fighting, she walked away, focused on her healing, and rebuilt her life quietly. Years later, she met that same person again, and the look in her eyes said everything her lips never needed to. That's what silence does. It turns pain into dignity. It makes your growth the only revenge worth giving. When you stay silent, you protect your energy. You create space between stimulus and response, that sacred space where wisdom lives. Most people react instantly, but power lies in the pause. That's the space where you ask yourself, is this worth my peace? Most of the time, it isn't. You don't have to explain yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You don't need to prove your innocence to those who want to see you guilty. Let time speak for you. Let results speak for you. Let your peace disturb their chaos. Because silence isn't empty, it's full of answers. It's the calm that confuses a storm, the quiet that carries strength, and the pause that shows you're no longer playing small. It's not that you can't fight back. It's that you've learned you don't need to. Forgiveness is one of the hardest things a human being can do. It feels unfair. Someone hurt you, betrayed your trust, broke something inside you, and somehow you're the one expected to let go. It feels like saying it's okay when it's not. But forgiveness isn't about saying it's okay. It's about saying, you no longer control how I feel. It's not for them. It's for your peace. Because when you hold on to resentment, you chain yourself to the moment that broke you, and every time you think about it, you bleed all over again. There was a woman I once spoke to who had been betrayed by her best friend. Years of friendship, gone in a single act of dishonesty. She couldn't sleep. Every night, she replayed the betrayal like a movie that wouldn't stop. One day, she said something I'll never forget. I realized she hurt me once, but I hurt myself 1,000 times by reliving it. That's what unforgiveness does. It traps you in yesterday's pain, even when life is begging you to move forward. There's a quote that says, holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. The truth is, they probably moved on. They're living their life, maybe even sleeping peacefully, while you're awake at night thinking about what they did. Forgiveness doesn't erase what happened. It simply breaks the invisible link that keeps you tied to their actions. When you forgive, you release yourself from their power. Think about how heavy a stone feels in your hand. Imagine carrying it all day. Then imagine adding another one tomorrow and another the next day. That's what holding grudges feels like. Every memory, every resentment adds another stone, until one day you're too exhausted to move. Forgiveness is a moment you finally drop the stones and realize your hands were always meant to build, not to carry pain. There was a man who forgave the drunk driver who killed his son. People asked him how. He said, because if I don't, I'll lose 2 lives, my son's and mine. That's the truth of forgiveness. It doesn't mean forgetting. It means you choose healing over hatred, peace over punishment. You learn the lesson, but you stop letting the lesson define you. Sometimes forgiveness is quiet. It's not a conversation. It's a decision you make alone, in the dark, with tears in your eyes. It's whispering to yourself, I release you, even when your heart still aches. And slowly, piece by piece, the ache turns into understanding. The pain becomes wisdom. The memory loses its sting. You stop asking, why did they do this to me? And start saying, what did this teach me? Forgiveness is not weakness. It's the ultimate act of self-respect, because it takes strength to unclench your fist when anger feels justified. It takes courage to choose peace when revenge feels easier. But in that quiet surrender, something beautiful happens. You get your power back. You stop being the victim of what happened, and you start being the author of what comes next. There comes a moment after the tears dry and the anger fades, when you realize you have 2 choices. Stay broken or build something out of pieces. Pain will visit every life. It's not optional, but what you do with it determines who you become. Some people let pain bury them. Others use it as fuel. Redirecting the energy doesn't mean pretending you're not hurt. It means choosing to transform that hurt into power. Think of fire. It can destroy, or it can forge steel. The same flame that burns a forest can also light the way forward. I once met a man who lost everything because his business partner betrayed him. They had started together, dreamed together, trusted each other like brothers. But when success came, greed followed. The betrayal shattered him. He lost money, reputation, and faith in people. For months, he lived in bitterness, replaying the betrayal every night. Then one day, he realized something. The person who betrayed him had moved on, but he was still stuck in that moment. That realization changed everything. He decided to rebuild, not to prove anything to anyone, but to prove something to himself. He used the lessons from that pain to start again, smarter, sharper, unshakable. Years later, his new business was 10 times stronger. And he said, if that betrayal never happened, I'd never have learned how powerful I truly am. That's what it means to redirect your energy. You stop asking, why did this happen to me? And start asking, what can I create from this? Every ounce of anger, disappointment, or sadness becomes fuel. You take what was meant to destroy you and turn it into something that defines you. The pain becomes your teacher, not your prison. Think of an athlete who gets injured before the biggest game of their career. They could quit, they could drown in frustration, or they could use that injury as a lesson in patience, discipline, and comeback power. When they return, they're not just stronger physically, they're sharper mentally. Pain forced them to grow in ways comfort never could. Sometimes, when people hurt you, they think they've taken your power away. They believe they've ended your story. But they don't realize they've just handed you a new beginning. You get to take that pain and redirect it into something beautiful. Art, purpose, success, peace. Maya Angelou once said, I can be changed by what happens to me, but I refuse to be reduced by it. That's the essence of power. You don't deny the wound. You let it teach you how to heal differently. When you redirect your energy, the pain that once paralyzed you starts to propel you. You wake up one day and realize you're not bitter anymore. You're better. The fire that once burned you now lights your path. You no longer seek revenge. Your growth becomes the answer. Because the most powerful comeback isn't loud or dramatic. It's quiet, steady transformation. It's showing up every day, using the very pain that tried to break you as the reason you rise higher than ever before. There's something extraordinary that happens when you learn to redirect your energy, not toward revenge, not toward resentment, but toward your own growth. Every person who's ever hurt you has given you something valuable, even if it didn't feel that way at the time. They've handed you raw energy. You can spend it trying to make them regret what they did, or you can spend it building a life so radiant that their memory fades in the light of your success. That's the quiet magic of turning hurt into motion. Pain, when transformed, becomes momentum. There was a young woman I once met who was deeply heartbroken. The man she loved walked away without explanation, leaving her in pieces. For months she lived inside that pain, replaying conversations, scrolling through old photos, searching for meaning in silence. But one night, she looked at herself in the mirror, eyes swollen, spirit exhausted, and whispered, I'm done being their story. I'm writing my own. That was the night she took her power back. She started waking up early, working out, learning new skills, and building a small online business. At first, it was just a distraction from the ache, but slowly, it became her purpose. 2 years later, she was thriving, financially, emotionally, spiritually. When asked what changed, she said, the day I stopped chasing closure and started chasing peace. That's the essence of redirecting your energy. It's realizing that what was meant to drain you can actually drive you. When you shift your focus from the person who hurt you to the person you're becoming, you stop giving them free rent in your mind. Every thought of revenge is energy wasted on someone who doesn't deserve your time. But every step toward healing, every act of self-improvement, is an investment in your future. You're no longer reacting, you're creating. There's a saying, don't get even, get better. But getting better isn't about competition. It's about alignment. It's about using your pain as a compass, pointing you toward what truly matters. If someone broke your trust, you learn to trust yourself more deeply. If someone disrespected you, you learn to honor your boundaries. Every betrayal becomes a mirror reflecting what you still need to heal. That's why the most powerful people are often the most peaceful. They've learned to turn pain into progress instead of punishment. Think of energy like water. You can let it flood your life, destroying everything in its path, or you can build channels and let it flow into something beautiful. Artists paint their pain. Writers bleed it onto paper. Entrepreneurs turn rejection into innovation. The difference between bitterness and brilliance is direction. The energy is the same. It's just pointed somewhere higher. When people see you glowing after everything you've been through, they'll wonder how you did it. The truth is, you stopped feeding your pain and started feeding your purpose. You didn't fight the darkness. You became the light. That's the quiet, unstoppable strength of someone who's learned to redirect their energy. They no longer burn from the fire. They rise from it. There comes a point in life when you realize that not everyone deserves access to your heart. Some people are lessons disguised as blessings, and others are storms that remind you how much peace is worth protecting. Boundaries aren't walls to keep people out. They're doors that you learn to lock when needed. They're the quiet lines that say, "This is where my peace ends and your chaos begins." Without them, you lose yourself trying to please everyone who never had your best interest in mind. I once knew a man who was always available for everyone. Friends, co-workers, family. Anyone could call, and he'd drop everything to help. At first, it made him feel noble, needed, important. But over time, he noticed something. When he needed help, no one showed up. The same people who drained him disappeared when he was empty. One day, he reached his breaking point. He didn't shout, he didn't argue. He just stopped answering every call. He learned that love without boundaries becomes self-destruction. When he started saying no, he discovered who truly valued him and who only valued his availability. That's the quiet power of boundaries. They reveal truth without confrontation. They teach you that it's not your job to rescue everyone from their own storms. It's not cruelty, it's clarity. Because when you protect your peace, you also protect your purpose. You can't pour from an empty cup. You can't heal others if you're bleeding yourself dry. There's a quote that says, "The only people who get upset when you set boundaries are the ones who benefited from you having none." And it's true. The moment you start respecting yourself, people accustomed to your self-neglect will call you selfish. But it's not selfish to choose peace. It's survival. Boundaries aren't about shutting people out. They're about deciding who gets to stay in your energy. Think of your peace like a garden. Not everyone deserves to walk through it. Some people come to admire the flowers, while others come to trample them. Boundaries are the gate that keeps your garden alive. You can't control who throws stones, but you can control who you invite inside. Sometimes, setting boundaries means walking away from conversations that go nowhere, from relationships that drain you, from environments that make you small. It's knowing that silence can be stronger than explanation. You don't have to justify why you're protecting yourself. You don't owe anyone access to your emotions just because they demand it. A woman once told me, "I lost so many people when I started setting boundaries." I smiled and said, "No, you didn't lose them. You just learned who was never really there." That's what boundaries do. They cleanse your circle. They make space for peace, for love that doesn't hurt, for people who don't take more than they give. When you finally understand your worth, you stop negotiating your peace. You stop shrinking to fit into spaces not built for your soul. You realize that saying no is a rejection. It's protection. And the moment you honor that truth, life starts honoring you back. Transformation is a quiet process, and almost never looks beautiful while it's happening. It's messy, lonely, and often hidden in the dark. But that's where strength is born, beneath the surface, where no one can see your struggle but you. When pain first hits, it feels like the end of something precious. A relationship ends, a betrayal cuts deep, a dream collapses, and suddenly, the life you knew no longer fits. But here's the truth no one tells you. Sometimes, life has to fall apart so it can rebuild you into someone unbreakable. Transformation begins in those silent nights when your heart aches, but you keep going anyway. I once heard the story of a woman who went through a devastating divorce. She had built her whole identity around being a wife and mother. When it ended, She didn't recognize herself. She spent months crying, asking, "Who am I now?" But little by little, she began to rediscover herself. She started reading again, painting again, smiling again. Every day she reclaimed a small piece of who she was before the pain. A few years later, she had her own business, her own peace, her own power. When asked how she survived, she said, "The day I stopped trying to be who I was before, I became who I was meant to be." That's transformation. It's not about going back. It's about rising different. People think strength means never breaking. But real strength is breaking and then building yourself back with softer hands, wiser eyes, and a braver heart. The caterpillar doesn't fight the cocoon. It surrenders to it. It trusts that the darkness is purpose. The pain you feel isn't punishment. It's preparation. It's carving out the space for a version of you that couldn't exist before. There's a quote that says, "Sometimes when you're in a dark place, you think you've been buried, but actually you've been planted." That's the paradox of transformation. You don't see the growth happening, but it's there, quietly unfolding beneath the pain. Every tear waters the soil of your becoming. Every disappointment shapes your new direction. And one day, without realizing when it happened, you wake up lighter. You stop reacting to things that once broke you. You start seeing your scars as proof that you survived, not reminders that you suffered. Transformation doesn't announce itself. It's in the little moments. When you choose peace over reaction, forgiveness over bitterness, faith over fear. It's when you stop needing closure from others because you've already found it within yourself. The very thing that tried to destroy you becomes the reason you discovered your strength. The people who hurt you, the failures that haunted you, the losses that nearly crushed you, they were never the end of your story. They were the turning points. Every wound was an invitation to rise. Transformation isn't loud. It's not dramatic. It's quiet resilience. It's the gentle power of saying, "I've changed and I'm not going back." Because once you've turned your wounds into wisdom, no pain can take away the person you become. Every person in this room has been hurt. Every single one of us has a scar that tells a story. But those scars aren't proof of weakness. They're proof that you survived. You made it through nights you thought would never end. You walked through storms that were meant to drown you. And you're still here, stronger, wiser, louder in silence than you ever were in pain. So tonight, make a decision. No more carrying what was meant to crush you. No more giving power to people who didn't honor your heart. No more letting pain define who you are. Let your silence protect you. Let forgiveness free you. Let growth guide you. Let transformation crown you. Because your story isn't about what they did to you. It's about what you did next. It's about how you turned pain into purpose, heartbreak into healing, and wounds into wisdom. Don't wait for permission to rise. Don't wait for an apology that may never come. Start now. Stand tall. Speak softly. Move forward. And when life tries to test you again, and it will, remember this one truth. You are not what hurt you. You are what healed from it. That's the power you've been carrying all along. Your support means everything. If this resonated with you, please share, and subscribe. And remember this. They tried to break you, but you rose stronger than ever. Thank you for being here. See you in the next one.